Good morning. Welcome to Q and Amaco. I'm Kara, and we are switching our schedule back to all Tuesdays. So we're going to alternate Q and Amaco with Glazing with Amaco. Glazing with Amaco will focus mostly on Cone 5, and Q and Amaco is a more casual stream where I answer your questions. Unfortunately, today I am having some issues with finding the stream. So hopefully I can see your chats, and it looks like there we go. I will be able to see chats in the 5-6 group and possibly also in Restream. Maybe, possibly. There we go. Hi, Arden. Welcome. So today, let me switch over to my overhead. So I do not have, usually I have David helping me out here. Michelle, I can see you. I see you on my Restream, but not on my Facebook. That works. Oh, okay, you're on YouTube. That explains it. So today I'm going to start out, what I'm doing is glazing this small cheese plate. So I have C49 Rainforest, and I'm going to use this like a stain. So I am going to just, while I answer questions, but I'm going to get started with this. So I'm just going to do one kind of messy coat on here. So this is 11M Amix, Amaco's white stoneware, and I stamped it using a large alphabet looking stamp that I found at a craft store years ago. So I just kind of did a whole bunch of alphabets all over it. Alphabets and numbers. It's like it almost looks like an old typewriter or typographer set. So messy coat, not being too careful, just trying to get it all into the texture. So our PC20 formula was changed, and you now need to apply 5 coats. So Michelle, I have been doing some tests with PC20, and we had to change the red iron oxide that we used, but it is, there have been other kind of changes in the past several years because of material issues. And when I did some tests comparing older batches with newer batches, the newer batches go on in very thin coats, and that is not due to the formula changing, but our gum solution makes the glaze a little thinner in applying. But what I'm finding is that if I'm getting the same thickness, so I actually did a test yesterday, and I'll talk about this more in a couple of weeks when I have more tests together. So now I've got my loose coat of rainforest on here, and I've got my wet sponge and clean water. I'm just going to sponge that back. So what I found is that the coats are going on thinner. It's not that, yes, you're going to need to apply 5 coats, but it's not because the glaze itself is like weaker, if that makes sense. It's because it's going on thinner. So you're still using the same amount of glaze as you would have been before, but yes, you are going to need to apply it a little heavier. Now, I was finding that 4 coats for me was working. but I am a very generous glazer. So what I recommend is if you have a newer batch of PC20, and by that I mean within the past year, make a test tile where you compare 2 coats, 3 coats, 4 coats, and 5 coats and see what is the application that works best for you, because everybody applies a little differently. You might have a different brush, but otherwise the color is coming out the same. It's just going on thinner. And I am going to talk more about that at a later time when I have some more testing done. But the issue is still, as it always has been, is application. Now I am noticing one difference from older batches is that the newer batches where they break are coming out more blue and less brown. I have not noticed that really with other colors. Kind of an interesting thing, Michelle, is that, and I'm going to talk about this more in a little bit, is that oatmeal with the new gum solution requires less coats, fewer coats to come out the appropriate color. And it's really kind of a surprise. Now, I am hoping that, and I'm sure that our lab is hoping too, that as our material supply chain settles down, which I anticipate it will, in the next couple of years, and things will stabilize, that we won't have issues with our glazes being different. We'll have an easier time of consistency. This is a strange time for all of us. So I have the heavy coat of, kind of sloppy coat of Rainforest C49 that I applied to the whole thing and sponged it back so that it shows the texture. And I might go in and, you know, like the B wasn't showing up quite as well as I wanted it to. So I can go back and kind of clean that up the way I want it. There we go. And now I'm going to apply the C40 Aqua. I do want to make sure that this dries. So let's see. So last week in our Glazing with Amaco, I talked about how one of my favorite combinations has been iron luster with oatmeal over it, which makes just a beautiful purple, like so. And that some people were finding that the combination was coming out more brown. And in testing this combination, what I found is that less oatmeal will give you a better result than more oatmeal. And this is just because oatmeal is an odd glaze. Janet was asking if the batch numbers would be listed on the website when the gum solution changed. No, we don't generally put batch numbers on our website when there's any changes, but I can tell you that the gum solution roughly changed in the first half of 2022. I don't have the actual numbers. Oh, and Janet, you said that after last week's presentation you were getting better results. I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, I think that the new oatmeal is working really well, but for the layering, it was actually working a little too well, which is kind of strange, but it requires less to make the same results than what a lot of us were used to. So I would like to warn everybody, you should always, when you get a new jar of glaze, even when it's one that you've used before, make a small test just to make sure And if you are doing a large batch of something, like maybe you have a commission for a dinnerware set or a tile project, please, as much as you can, try to purchase glazes that all have the same batch code. If you're making one particular color, uh, try to get all the same batch code, because if they have the same batch code, they should all be working exactly the same, and you won't have any inconsistencies from one batch to the next. This is the same for if you're working in fibers. You get dye lots. So this is not a new thing. And Michelle says that you have a gallon of the old oatmeal and you wanted to know if there's anything that you could add to it to make it work better. I think it'll work fine if it's very old and very thick. You're just going to use it the way that you've always used it. So it's going to go on thick. It's going to be really globby. I recommend not adding water unless it is so thick that you can't get a brush into it. And in that case, you can add water and gum solution. Let me see. I see some other questions came in. What is the trick with June bug in cone 5-6 oxidation? I can never get the flash of iridescence. It seems to just come out grass green. This is from Gus. I've done test tiles with different amount of coats and position in the kiln. Gus, if you go to Amaco.com, we have a special page for June bug, and there is information on June bug and firing June bug and getting the best results. And it is a very tricky glaze. So my best results were cone 5 with a long hold and 3 coats. If you go too thick, it will blister. If you go too thin, it's just dark. And generally, you need to have a thick enough coat for the iridescence, and it needs to have a lot of space in the kiln. So making sure that it's a slow firing, lots of space. Generally, that makes it happiest. And let's see. Jessica responds to Gus and says, a slow fire to cone 6 with a hold and a large load so it cools slower. I can imagine that that helps with the development of those crystals. So I'm going to set this aside for a moment and show you my iron luster and oatmeal result from last week. As I said, I first was trying my usual amount of coats, and it was coming out more yellowy, and a heavier amount of oatmeal was getting this more yellow and also very mottled. So after doing some tests, I did my 2 coats of iron luster and 1 coat of oatmeal, just 1 coat of oatmeal, and this was fired to cone 6. And you can see I got, a really rich purple color. It's not as light as it has been in the past, but it doesn't have any of the yellow and it doesn't have any of the kind of speckling. It's just a nice purple with a light blue haze and then a line around the bottom. Let's see. Arden says purple crystal looks like a deep blue, no purple at all, cone 5.5. Purple crystal will look more blue the hotter it gets. So check your firing, confirm it with cones that you're not over firing, because I find that purple crystal at cone 6 generally is going to come out blue with just a hint of speckles on it. So to get it really a real purple, it needs to be cone 5. Blue Rutile, yeah, PC20 Blue Rutile. If you don't add enough coats, it comes out yellow. Well, I haven't had the yellow. I've gotten kind of a light blue that has a slight green tint to it, but it's not yellow at this point. So am I still, I'm hoping that I'm still on the Facebook group because it looks like it froze. So I've got 2 coats of the aqua over the using the rainforest. Was that rainforest? Yes, it was rainforest. Using rainforest as a stain on the whole thing, and we'll see how that comes out. I think that it's going to be really nice. It's one of my favorite techniques for doing texture is to use a lighter and more translucent color over a stain of a darker or more opaque. So maybe like glacier over cobalt, or in this case rainforest with aqua over it, or poppy over, or poppy as a base and then marigold over it. There's lots of combinations. You can use different colors in different families, but I usually make a monochromatic kind of thing. So a darker blue with a lighter, more clear blue over it, or a red with a yellow or orange over it. I try to keep them in the same family so that they don't, so that base color still has its color and doesn't come out muddy. I think I've lost the 5-6 group, but I still have my YouTube. So Michelle says you don't remember what group it was on, but people were using 3 coats and getting yellow. It's, from what I'm seeing with the PC20, it's just too thin. It's just too thin. I have not seen the yellow, so I can't say, but a thicker application will get more of the blue and the blue float. The other thing I wanted to tell you guys about is, I'm going to go to selfie because I'm not glazing at this point. So next week, for those people who are in the Midwest or people who love to travel, next week is the National Council on Education in Ceramic Arts, also known as NCECA. It's the annual conference is going to be in Cincinnati, Ohio. And Amaco will be there, and I will be there. And I would love to get together with anybody who would like to come for coffee. I think that we're going to try to get a meetup for the people in the 5-6 group. And there will be demos at the Amaco booth. And of course, if you've been to an NCECA before, you know what kinds of activities go on. It's just a really fun gathering, and it's so inspirational. If you have not been, there are day passes that are available for a single day if you don't want to get overwhelmed. But as I said, very inspiring. You meet so many people who are in the clay community in different ways. You meet artists, you meet students, you meet teachers, collectors, gallerists, just everybody of all levels of art making. And you can see and purchase so many different things. And there are exhibitions. There are also educational opportunities. And of course, talks by artists, and so much to see. So I will be there, and I hope to see you there. And if it is your first time, I hope you have a great time. But I am going to try to get a meetup on Thursday. That'll be March 16, near the vendor area. And I hope you can meet me for coffee or just for hanging out. And in the meantime, thank you for joining me on my glaze adventures, and happy glazing.